Hello Hearties, it's Catherine here, and today I might be at risk of showing my age, but do you remember Zippy from Rainbow? Poor old Zippy, he was a puppet type figure, and instead of lips, he had a zip. So when he went on and on, talking too much and wouldn't shut up, his friends would just grab one end of the zip and they would just zip and they would shut poor Zippy up. Now, I make reference to poor Zippy quite frequently actually on calls, particularly with private clients of mine. So I thought it's about time he gets a moment of fame in my video and on my blog. So the reason I talk about Zippy is because he's always on my mind when it comes to sales, because when I started out in sales, age 23, I started out in the travel industry. But by my 30s, I had moved to work in the recruitment industry. And in the role in the recruitment industry, Zippy was a regular feature of our lives. We all used to remind each other. We'd say things like, state the price, then shut up. And we would zip our lips to remind each other to be more zippy. And so I want to introduce him to you because understanding how to make use of Zippy will help prevent you from doing something that's called talking yourself out of the sale. And what this means is talking yourself out of the sale happens when you've reached the point where your client has actually heard everything they need to hear to decide to work with you, and they are totally ready to go ahead and make that decision and say yes if you only ask them. But you keep on talking, maybe because of nervousness or because of discomfort with the sales process, and you keep talking and talking, filling all of the space that they need in order to process, to make a decision, and ultimately you talk yourself out of the sale. Because you see, your client needs space to process if they're going to make a decision. So a few examples of places where it can be really important to just say what you've got to say and then zip up, Zippy style, is immediately after you introduce your offer and you state your price, after you ask them if they would like to go ahead, after you ask them if they have got any specific concerns about going ahead, and also just after you've shared an important piece of information that you want to make sure that they take in and process. Those are just a few examples of the types of place in your sales conversation or in your sales process where you might want to zip up and give your client space to process and take in whatever it is you've just told them. So, for example, you have just told them that it's going to cost £1,500 to join your group program for the next 6 months. Say it and zip up. Give them time to process, because what's happening for your client in that moment is that their brain will be whirring and clunking and running a really complex series of algorithms. They're weighing up the pros and the cons, how they feel about this, does it feel right to them, what they're scared of, what will their husband say, what will their best friend say, what could possibly go wrong, how amazing it would be if everything went right and they got the most amazing outcome, and simultaneously wondering, have I got enough money in the bank account? Do I need to put it on a credit card? Maybe if I ask Aunt Jemima, she'll let me take some of my inheritance early. You know, they're running all of this. Now, not always. Sometimes the decision will actually be very easy. There are times when the potential client comes along to your sales conversation, 80% decided. They're already 80% there, and all you're doing in that sales conversation is you're reinforcing that decision, you're reassuring them, and making sure you don't inadvertently say something that's going to change their mind or talk so much that you talk them out of the decision. But at other times, the decision will be more complex for people, and it's in those cases, and you're not going to know necessarily. But in those cases, your client will need time to process the information that you're sharing if they're going to ultimately say yes to you. So when you keep talking, whether it's from nervousness, very often it's from second guessing, running those stories in your head where you make up in your own head what the client is thinking, but you can't possibly know what they're thinking. So what you end up doing is you jump in, you jump in too eagerly with a solution or an answer to what you think they're thinking, or some reassurance. Maybe you offer them a discount before they've even commented on the price. Maybe you start addressing a concern that they haven't voiced that might not even be their concern. When you do that, you interrupt the thought process, and this makes it impossible for them to come to their own decision. And when you do that, instead of finding your chatter helpful, and instead of finding it sort of extra helpful, useful information, which I know is how you usually intend it to be, what happens is they've already got all the information they need to process, and all the extra chatter just gets in the way. It just interrupts and inhibits their own ability to process. And so if you try too hard to help them make a decision by continuing to talk, and in the absence of space, what will happen is that they will end up saying no, or more commonly, they'll end up saying, I need to think about it. And in fact, this not allowing people the space to come to their own decision is probably the biggest reason, or one of the biggest reasons, why clients end the conversation saying, I need to think about it, instead of, yes, please, how soon can we get started? So what do you need to do? Well, in this case, it's really easy. You need to say what it is you need to say as clearly and succinctly as you possibly can, whether that's an important point you're sharing on a webinar, or whether it's after you've stated the price, or ask them how that sounds during a sales conversation. Just say it and stop. Think of Zippy and mentally zip up, and stay zipped up long enough for your clients to be able to process. So say what you've got to say, zip up, and wait. And sometimes it will just take a few seconds. Maybe all you need to do is pause to allow your point to sink in, and once you've paused for a few moments, you can move on. But sometimes, I'm just warning you, you're going to need to feel brave enough to zip up and stay zipped up completely, and let the client be the first one to speak. Now, yes, it will feel really uncomfortable the first time you do this. It will feel painfully, interminably long. But it feels long for you because you're the one that's waiting. For your client, it won't feel like a long, uncomfortable silence. They won't be sitting there in silence. Instead, what they'll be sitting there doing is running through this internal thought process and decision-making process. So they won't even notice that there's a silence. And what I tend to find is that there's sort of these two ends of the spectrum, where the people who've come to the call already 80 to 90% mind made up don't need as much processing time. They'll be quite quick to break that silence. But some people who do say yes will be the ones who have the longest silence. So the more you can hang in there and give them the space and give them the silence, the more likely it is that their internal process will be able to run its entire course, and they will break that silence to say, yes, actually, I think I would like to do this. And they will, they will break that silence. They will speak. So let me know how you're finding this. Do you recognize yourself here? Do you know that you keep talking to fill the gaps during your sales conversations? And do you notice that you're someone who gets a lot of, I need to think about it, and I'm not sure why that happens? If you think this might be you, the next time, just try zipping up at some of these crucial moments and just see what happens. I would love to know. Come back and share in the comments. Let me know how uncomfortable it felt, because I know it will feel uncomfortable. But if you're brave enough to do it, and you can allow and hold that silence, you'll be amazed at at what that does for the client in terms of giving them the ability to make a decision there and then while they're in that conversation with you, rather than needing to go away and think about it because they can't get the space while you're present and talking. So I hope it was useful. Like I said, come and let me know the outcome for you in the comments below, and I look forward to seeing you soon for the next video. Lots of love to you. Bye bye.